So high pressure is currently in charge across the UK, and it's leading to extremely warm conditions. Now it's looking like today's going to be the warmest day for many, because moving into the end of the week and the weekend, we start to see a change in the weather. This area of high pressure moves to the north of the British Isles. Into the early part of next week, winds are going to shift to more of a north or northeasterly direction. So gradually, over the course of the weekend, temperatures will start to drop, initially in eastern areas. You'll also notice here that the isobars are slightly denser than they have been, so we're going to see a slight increase in wind speed in the early part of next week. Now into Monday, there's a potential for showers to start pushing up from the south, and this continues into Tuesday and Wednesday, and some of these might be thundery. Now there's much uncertainty currently in the models on this, so it's best to stay tuned to the short-term forecasts into next week. So this is the Atmospheric Angling website, and I thought with this week we'd have a look through a couple of regions. To be honest, it's largely the same pattern everywhere, with a few nuances. So if we look at the Midlands region, the pressure, it's generally high throughout the week. There's a slight rise through to Sunday, but then that sort of continues through to next Wednesday. The general weather, it's sunny, it's dry. Temperatures peaking in the low 30s today or tomorrow, and then dropping off throughout the rest of the week. The winds starting off light, there's a shift to the northeast as I mentioned earlier, and then there's a slight rise up to about 12 miles an hour on average into the early part of next week. Cloud cover, somewhat variable. It tends to get slightly more cloudy as we go through the week, but still, below 50%. Now I do have a welfare note on here. Now given that the temperatures have been quite warm for some time, dissolved oxygen in certain venues might have the potential to drop. So that's noted here. That tends to be the shallower venues. And of course, pike fishing was generally not advised in these warm conditions. Now the model agreement, we take the average and spread across 6 different models here on our website, and as I mentioned in the intro, it is getting more uncertain as the week progresses. It's generally the case, but this is particularly on Wednesday, where there's a spread here for the Midlands on temperature and wind speed. Rivers, well, they're kind of in the normal category here. They're slightly down, but they could be a lot worse given the conditions we've had. Now the Feeding Opportunity Index, as I mentioned in last week's video, this combines several meteorological factors, and this is kind of a push and pull factor. There are a number of them that are combined into this one index. And what we do here, each point here is a look back over the previous 10 days. It's like a rolling 10-day condition. And this really reflects the lag that water bodies have to the weather conditions. And what you notice here, there's kind of these phases of higher, then it goes lower. And this is currently reflecting these sort of heat wave conditions we've had. So earlier last week, we went into the good category here for the Midlands, following the sort of shift to slightly cooler conditions. That's continued through to about present. As we move into next week, the lag effect of these heat wave conditions will start to be felt. So this is why this drops down slightly. Now, having said that, what we don't take into account currently is wind speed in this. And that could have a beneficial effect on the fishing on Monday and Tuesday. That's something to bear in mind. It does look like the conditions will start to tick up towards the end of the week. Now, if we just have a look at a different region, if I click on Northwest, as I said, it's kind of the same picture. It's generally high pressure, generally fine conditions, generally dry. Temperatures here are slightly lower than we saw in the Midlands, peaking around 31 tomorrow. But again, it's this drop off that we're seeing elsewhere that we in temperature over the coming week. There is a slightly higher chance of showers here than we saw across the Midlands. Now, interestingly, here on Wednesday, the spread across the models is on temperature, rainfall, as well as wind speed. So something to watch out for on the shorter term forecasts. And rivers, again, they're in the sort of normal category but down slightly. So that, really they could be worse. The FOI, again, is the same picture. It's generally good at the moment and dropping off following the rise in temperatures that we're currently seeing. And then towards the end of the forthcoming week, we're back up to the good category. So that's the fishing forecast for the forthcoming week. Generally, there's a lagged response to the heatwave conditions, but given that it was quite short, conditions should bounce back quite quickly. Now, do check out our website where you'll find much more information and fishery level detail. Subscribe to our newsletter as well as the channel, so you'll get the forecast directly into your inbox. And join us for next week's forecast. There is some indication that there's a change in the weather to slightly wetter conditions in the longer range forecasts. Quite uncertain at this stage, but we'll check it out next week.